Hello everyone and welcome in today's webinar in Risk and Management. My name is Tim and I am the organizer of this webinar. First of all, I would like to ask for your apologies for being late today. We were having some technical difficulties and I believe now we will be okay. Today's webinar will be on aligning ISO 31000 and management of risk methodology, which will be presented by Mr. Orlando Odejide, PECB partner and chief trainer for Training Heights Limited. In today's topic, we will cover how ISO 31000 as the adopted standard can have risk components and can be related to ISO 27005. And we will go through description of management of risk and how organizations can benefit from it, the complementary values of the 31000 and management of risk bring to each other. Before Orlando begins his presentation, I would like to ask the audience to please write down any questions you may have during the webinar in the chat box on your control panel, and we will respond to a few at the end and answer the remaining through email. You can also use the option to raise your hand and we will unmute your microphone. On this note, as some of you may already know, we have begun to issue certificates of webinar participation. So please write us at marketing@pecb.com if you want to get a certificate of attendance from 1 CPD credit. Enjoy the session and please, Orlando, you may continue.
Good. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I'm sorry we're starting late, we're about 15 minutes late. I was having challenges with my internet connection. But I'll just go right into it. This is about enterprise risk management, and it's about how to use the standard, which is ISO 31000, and to combine it with the methodology called MOR, which is management of risk methodology, and that comes out of the UK, out of an organization called OHSAS. I've been doing risk management for almost a decade, and I believe that for an organization to get the best benefit out of risk management, they will need to significantly combine what management of risk methodology provides and what ISO 31000 also provides to them. Okay. Once again, my name is Orlando, and I'm happy to be here. So what is this about? It's primarily about effective and efficient risk management practices. So risk management is becoming much more important as the days go by. In a lot of countries that I've been opportunity to go to, risk management has been driven by a lot of the regulators. So whether it's the regulator for the banking industry, the regulator for the insurance industry, the regulator for the asset management and the stockbroking firm, the stock regulators even for telecommunications. So risk management is today is probably much more important than a lot of the traditional departments that are in the organization, because if you fail at risk management, huge possibility your organization is going to be shut down. So this is no longer, it's not a nice to have, it is a must have to be involved with risk management as an organization. Okay, so the combination of using the standard and using that comes out of the excellence is excellent. I mean, I think that for organizations that really want to do this well, do enterprise risk management well, they've got to be able to focus on these two approaches. And I'll just go straight into it. So this is the MOR methodology, the part of it that I put in myself, which is the part that is to the that talks about risk classes and categories. I put all that in myself. But the MOR methodology used to be owned by the Office of the Government of Commerce, UK, but now owned by an organization called OHSAS, which was taking that over. They are also the owners of ITIL and the owners of Prince 2. So they're the owners of those methodologies. Management of risk is one of those methodologies. And this is what it covers essentially, it talks about the 12 principles of risk management. It talks about what should be the components of a risk policy. So it's given this, the beautiful thing about this methodology is that it's given this clear guidelines that says that a policy document should have, at the very minimum, these 15 categories within the policy document in itself. So when you're working on the risk management engagement, you're going to have different types of policies. You're going to have a credit policy, technology policy, environmental, health and safety, legal, all sorts of risk policies that you're going to end up having. What this is saying is that each of these risk policies should all have the minimum of 15 categories within them. It also says that at the very beginning, you should have a clear discussion around what are the principles of risk management and how can you combine, how do you agree on the principles that are driving risk management practice or risk management adoption for an organization. One of the great things it also does is it gives you the specification of risk management strategy. So a lot of people confuse these three things together. They confuse the risk management, the principles, the policy, and the strategy. So the MR documentation makes it very clear in terms of what should be the components of the strategy, what should be the components of the policy, and what should be the components of the risk register in itself. So when I work with organizations, one of the things I tell them clearly is how good your risk register is, not only from a design perspective, but also in terms of how it is populated, how frequently and how adequately it is populated, tells about the maturity of risk management within an organization. So designing and populating the risk register is key for an organization that is looking to do well from an enterprise risk management perspective. We also talk about things like early warning indicators, once again tied to the different categories or classes of risk that you have. So what are the early warning indicators for financial risk management, for market risk, for operational risk? What are the early warning indicators in each of these areas? The documentation called MOR also clearly distinguishes the difference between a risk register and an issue register. A risk register which is meant to document things that are happening beforehand, and an issue register that is meant to document the things that have happened as at today. It is very important for an organization to draw a clear line between what is a risk register and what is an issue register. Finally, the part that is on this screen that you can see is the part that talks about risk classes and categories, and I made that up myself. From my experience looking at how different people look at different risk categories, but in each of those risk categories, you've got to develop the early warning indicators for them. You also have to develop specific policies for each of these areas. And at the beginning, in a department or at the beginning of the risk management project, you need to be able to define the principles and an interpretation of those principles for a particular organization. So this is the very essence of the management of risk methodology. When I get to the ISO 31000, you see that a lot of things that are also here are also represented in the ISO 31000 methodology. However, it is much more, it's much more clearer and much more precise in the risk management methodology called MOR. That is why an organization that is looking to do well in this area has got to combine both of them. Okay, I'm going to quickly go through the following, and you see. So you will see in here this diagram that once again is from MR. It talks about the register, it talks about the approach, it talks about the process guide, it talks about the policy, right? It talks about the issue and the risk register, and then it gives a certain process. I'll walk you through the process later in the slide, where it clearly states what the process for risk management, what an example of a process for risk management that starts from identify the risk, assess it, plan it, implement, communicate it to everybody, embed, and review it regularly within the organization. So those are the processes that are also being spoken about within this MOR methodology. It's a great methodology, and if you're going to do very well with your ISO 31000 initiative, you need to combine it document because it gives a lot of guidance in this regard. Okay, good. So from an MOR perspective, what's the definition of risk? Uncertain event, set of events. Should it occur, will have an effect. So yes, I mean everybody agrees that yes, risk can be positive or negative. It's just that typically, usually, risk will be negative. The mitigation of a risk can bring up brand new opportunities that if an organization takes advantage of it, it then becomes, an opportunity and they can use it for competitive advantage. But usually when you're looking at risk, typically you're looking at things that can go wrong in reality. So it's measured by a combination of probability of a perceived threat. Now note that it says probability because risk management is really meant to be scientific, so to speak. Not just the possibility of something happening, it's also around the probability of something happening. So you can see that it says probability of the perceived threat or opportunity occurring and the magnitude of its importance on objective. So these are directly out of the MOR methodology and it speaks about risk management. Okay, so what exactly is enterprise risk management in itself? Looking at it from the enterprise perspective, in a lot of organizations, now we have what we call the person called the Chief Risk Officer of an organization, the CRO, the Chief Risk Officer of an organization. So they're the ones usually in charge of the enterprise risk department, and they take a very holistic and rounded approach to looking at risk management within the organization. Now, this is different from internal audit or internal control that specifically focus on internal control issues and internal audit issues. Risk management is much more holistic than just internal audit. Okay, so it allows the board of the organization and its management and of course audit stakeholders to be able to understand the various types of risks that can affect an organization and how to be able to deal with them, especially in a cost and effective way. So yes, risk management works in concert with the internal audit unit. It works in concert with the internal control unit. But typically, it stands alone because it is different in terms of the makeup and its own specific objectives. Right? Risk management is as independent as it needs to be. Even though it's within the organization, it's independent of the processes that are being dealt with. Right? So. Yeah, that is risk. That is enterprise risk. Looking at it, having a chief risk officer in the organization, and looking at it from top to the bottom. Okay, good. So risk. I always tell people risk has got to be identified and addressed, treated beforehand. Otherwise, what you have on to deal with is a set of issues, or you're in a crisis environment. So risk has got to be dealt with beforehand. It's got to be addressed and it's got to be dealt with beforehand. The risk has got to be assessed and controlled, which are mitigation or treatment, depending on what document you're looking at. The ISO document really looks at it more from a treatment perspective than mitigation. Okay, so I already spoke about this. This is basically from my experience in terms of what exactly are the things that people look at when people say enterprise risk. Some people are looking at the failure or looking at the corporate governance. Some people are looking at credit, political, counterparty, commercial, various ways by which people look at risk. The most important thing is that in an organization, you've got to look at it and say, none of the methodologies tell you that these are the categories to look at. They give broad guidelines in terms of the things to look at within specific categories, but they don't necessarily tell you that these are the categories you should look at. So you can use this guide to say to yourself, what categories am I interested in? The majority of an enterprise risk management department depends on how many categories that they're able to look at. But at the very beginning, in the first 1-2 years of the organization, they cannot look at all these areas adequately. So risk management matures and it grows within an organization. I'll move on quickly. So I'm going to quickly do a brief run through of some of these categories because those are the key areas. 2 key things that people need to understand. The first slide that I spoke about when I said you need to understand the principles that are guiding risk management in your organization, the components of every single policy that you need to write, your strategy and what makes up the strategy, how the risk register needs to be designed and appropriately populated, how that needs to differ from the issue register, and the risk early warning indicators that are tied to the policies and are tied to the categories. Then we need to go straight and speak about some of these areas. So So what does corporate governance mean? Corporate governance, the risk of corporate governance is that the organization does not have an effective board. Primarily, that's what it is. That the organization of the business does not have an appropriate board that is appropriately populated with the right people, with the right skill sets, to be able to guide the organization adequately. The management of the organization has not been differentiated from the governance of the organization. That is what we mean by corporate governance risk. And this is very important and essential. Okay, so this is also, which is different from the corporate management of risk. You can have an effective board and might not have an efficient or effective management. And you can have really great management and you might not have a great board. So the difference between the former slide, which is the corporate governance risk, which deals primarily with the board, and how it differs from when we're talking about the CEO and the executive directors or the chief operations officer, the chief finance officer, the chief information officer, how these two differ and how the risks are areas differently. So the risks that are associated with is slightly different, even though they're interconnected or interrelated between what happens for management and what happens at the board. Okay, I will move on quickly. So strategy risk is very important. I like to say this is the risk that that your balance scorecard was not designed appropriately and obviously is not being interpreted or executed right. So whether the organization has an appropriate strategy, whether they have, whether they've done their SWOT analysis, their personal analysis, their BCG matrix, if they've done it appropriately, and if they're applying it appropriately, is what we mean by the strategy of the organization. So some organizations have excellent strategy, but bad strategy execution. Some other organizations have great execution, but the strategy itself is usually in the wrong direction. So an organization needs to get it right from a strategy perspective, irrespective of the kind of strategy tools you use in your organization. It could be Porter's Five Forces, it could be Blue Ocean, whatever the strategy tool that you use in your organization, there's a risk that you've not got the strategy right and you might not get the right benefits out of it. Good. So I like to look at market risk, right? And that basically talks about the equity, the interest rate, the currency, and the commodity. So if we look at market risk, usually these are some of the things that we're looking at. In some countries that I work in, the interest rate is as high as 21% on an annual basis from banks. So if an international company or another country company in another country that is outside of that country, they've got to take this into consideration. The lending rate is around that. And in some countries, it actually fluctuates. There's some countries that the changes that you have in the currency, dollars to pounds, is what literally kills the organization. And some organizations, some countries, their entire portfolio in terms of the revenue generating entity for the organization might be in oil and gas. And with the drop in oil and gas prices, it literally affects both the country and its economy. So it's important to understand the components of the market and what makes it up and how it affects your own organization. Quickly, credit risk is important. An organization can easily fold up simply because of its overexposure to its creditors. So keeping a tight or keen eye on your credit as an organization is important and essential to be able to deal with this. Otherwise, your credit goes out of control, the organization goes backward. They might have a great product, they might have great management, they might have great strategy, but their inability to manage credit kills the organization in itself completely. Okay? Credit is usually what leads to cash flow problems, and that is an issue for an organization. Every organization needs to keep its eyes on its credit management policy, its credit procedures, and its credit approach. Good. Operational risk. Some people call this process. It really depends on how your organization wants to look at it. Some organizations look at it and say, you know what, operational risk is a process risk for us. Some organizations say, no, operational risk is different. Some organizations that have already done ISO 9001 will take a particular view to say, you know what, we're looking at our operational processes. So you've got to really agree whether in your own organization you want to call operations process, or you want to call process operations, or you want to call it operational risk, which is basically a combination of both of them. Because in reality, you cannot break down the operation of an organization except you, the operation of an organization except you understand its processes. So in reality, the operations might be at a high level, the processes that are involved within the operations that might be at a lower level. So you've got to, there's always a link between the operational aspects of an organization and its own internal processes, and the risk that those things can go wrong. The risk that it can lead to fraud, the risk that it can lead to a lot of inefficiencies within the business, the risk that things can go wrong. A lot of times when you're looking at operational risk, you also look at the people risk, the people that are involved from an operational perspective. Operational risk also leads to saying what are the areas of our organization that needs to be automated. What are the risks in carrying out our business from an operational perspective? So this is important and this is essential. Quickly, liquidity again. So liquidity at a much more deeper level is really looking at the cash flow of the organization. Credit can cause a cash flow issue, but liquidity is that cash flow in itself. Some organizations have assets that cannot be easily converted into cash, and they still go bankrupt. Even though they have assets, but the assets that they have cannot easily be converted, and that is an issue. So, understanding liquidity risk in your own organization, understanding your risk with regards to cash flow. I've seen organizations that are doing very well generally, maybe in terms of their profitability and their losses ratio at the end of the year, but the business is completely stifled during the year simply because they've got cash flow challenges. So how liquid you are to be able to get cash to do the businesses that you need to do to fund and run your company is very important. Liquidity is beyond cash flow. It's just an element of it, but it's probably one of the most important elements when you're asking yourself, how can we be certain that we're liquid enough as an organization to be able to do our trades adequately as at the time that we need to do it in the markets that we operate in. Okay? Reputation or brand. Once again, some organizations decide to also break this into two. Some decide to combine it in terms of what is our reputation and what is our brand. For some organizations, they both mean the same thing. And what this is just saying is that the perception, how do people see your business? All right? How do they see the organization? Does the organization have some kind of brand equity that it can rely upon? Okay? This also differs in that its reputation, the reputation of an organization is destroyed. Most likely, it affects the brand of the organization and the product, the brand of the products that the organization has. So every organization has an objective to build a better brand, to build a better reputation. And this is important and essential to every business. And there is a risk associated with this. Social responsibility. Some organizations that are worried concerned in terms of how well the market sees them. Are they seen as a socially responsible organization, a socially responsible market? So this is important to some organizations. There's even an ISO that PECB offers, which is 26,000, which talks about following through with corporate social responsibility in your own organization. And how can you ensure that you're aligning to the standard for corporate social responsibility? So this is key. This is very important. So it's essential that an organization ensures that they also understand what is their corporate social responsibility as an example of social risk, right? Social risk is also much broader than that. It talks about the ratios, some of those things that you look at in microeconomics, the ratio of men to women, aging population, educated versus non-educated, and how that affects your own organization and your business. So social risk is much more bigger than corporate social responsibility, but it's one of the things that an organization needs to ask themselves, are we a socially responsible organization? At the end of the year, do we contribute anything at all to our social environment that we operate and that we deal in? Okay? Political risk. So if you live in Syria or you live in Syria right now, this is probably extremely important to you. Just like lots of other places around the world. Political risk is key. In a lot of countries, once there's elections, it affects businesses, it affects organizations, it affects the ones that are government contractors, it affects the economy, it affects the climate in a country to say, you know, we've got political risk to deal with, how do we deal with this? So this is important, extremely important, and it is essential that we get political risk right. And that an organization can do, you know, in personal analysis, the P in there stands for political. Personal analysis is political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental. The first P there is referring to political. Now, what are the political factors that will affect your own organization? And you need to capture this in the risk register. And this needs to be adequately captured. Investment risk. So, what is an investment into your own organization? Is an investment into the stock market? And what is the organization investing in? Because whatever you call investment, there's always a risk attached to it. Some people have cash, and that's their investment. Some people have invested a lot into bonds. Some people have invested into property. Some people have invested into equities. And each of these investment areas or investment classes carries its own level of risk in a certain market for a certain institution. So people say that, of course, your investment, you need to maintain a diversified portfolio where you can have a mix of cash and bonds and property and equity. No matter how diversified your portfolio is, each of these will affect your own organization. So you've got to even look at your investment risk critically and ask yourself, have I dealt with this? Have I included in my policy for investment risk all these areas of cash and bonds and property and equity adequately? Financial risk. So there's always a confusion for a lot of people because when you speak about financial risk, the interpretation for some people is equal to liquidity, market, and investment risk. So because I've spoken about those three completely different things, so when I'm talking about financial, in this instance, I'm referring to more of the accounting risk, which is talking about things around our books. How compliant to IFRS are we as an organization? How do we manage our profit and loss? How do we do our assets and our liability? What is the health of our balance sheet? At the end of the year, when we do our annual report, our financial reports, how balanced or how proper is our report? Our reports, are the board and the stakeholders, are they happy with the reports that we will provide? And the accounting practices of the organization. Recently in the US, a lot of companies are going to be shut down simply because of their accounting practices. So you need to look at financial risk under a broad category, accounting being one of those areas, investment being one of those areas under financial, market and liquidity being other areas, but you've got to differentiate each of these areas. Because you're doing well in market and liquidity and in investment doesn't mean that your accounting practices might not go wrong. So it's important that an organization keeps its eyes on its accounting and looks at writing specific policy for accounting and putting that on within its register. Health and safety. So for oil and gas companies, for manufacturing companies, this is not a nice to have. This is a must have for most organizations that are in health and safety industry. In the oil and gas industry, in the manufacturing industry, in the mining industry, health and safety is key. Most importantly, is to understand that life is the biggest risk, and that's an issue. So health and safety does help to address that. And health and safety risk is being updated literally recently, and you get newer versions of OHSAS 18001, which incidentally is also something that PECB does provide to its partners and clients. So health and safety is key. Some organizations think about health, enterprise risk management and they forget completely about health and safety risk. And it's important that you take that into consideration. Environmental risk is different from health and safety. Health and safety is OHSAS. OHSAS 18001 is different from environmental. Environmental that is focused on pollution, on climate protection, on things like emissions. So if you look at what is happening with one of the car brands today, they've got to deal with environmental risk, and literally the company is in trouble because they violated some of the issues with regards to the environment. So within enterprise risk, we've got to keep an eye on environmental risk, and this is important. Quickly, I'm going to move on to counterparty risk. And what does counterparty mean in your own organization? It could be the risk of insurance to some people. Some people tie this to their default risk. Right? So counterparty works in different businesses in different ways. Okay? The most important thing is that you've got to understand, right, that whichever party you're hoping that might be able to bail you out in the day of trouble, that party in itself might have an issue. I've seen some organization, it is their parent body, the parent organization that owns them, that constitutes a counterparty risk for them. Whereby if the parent body is in trouble, the sub-companies or some of the sub-entities might really be in trouble, especially for the people who do shared services or organizations that have centralized approaches. So you've got to really understand what is counterparty risk. Technology risk, one of definitely if you have an information technology strategy that is appropriate for your own organization, if you're on top of what technology has to provide, and if you're managing the risk of technology, and if your technology investments are key delivered to resources. These are all issues to deal with. So the project management of an organization, like it or not, has got to deal with projects. We deal with project risk. Because project risk, in a lot of organizations, a lot of their capital expenditure goes towards project. So project risk, in a way, is really dealing with the risk of our capital expenditure not going wrong, our ability to get the right return on investment from our investment in projects. Quickly, I'll go to economic risk, and you've got to break it down in your own organization to say maybe macroeconomic factors or microeconomic factors, and how that affects your own business. Well, there's a mistake here. It says Microsoft. It should be microeconomic issues, issues of supply and demand and pricing and things like that. That's a mistake. So it's microeconomic issues. Commercial risk just talks about what constitutes commercial entities for you, your customers, your suppliers, and the products. So commercial risk is big in itself. It says that, do you have the right customers? Because some companies, that's their challenge. They're in the wrong market space dealing with the wrong customers. For some organizations, they're working with the wrong suppliers. Suppliers don't give them adequate credit and don't give them any kind of leverage in the marketplace. For some other organizations, it's the fact that the products that they provide are just not appropriately designed, or the delivery of those products have an issue, or the quality of the products have an issue. So commercial risk is big. You've got to think about it. There's a specific policy that you're going to write with regard to commercial risk in your own organization. Regulatory and compliance risk, the risk that you get into trouble with your own regulators, whatever the name of your regulators are. So your organization has got to think about who regulates my industry, who regulates my organization, who regulates the industry that I'm operating in, and how do I ensure that I comply with the regulator. It's very important, right? Internal audit and control risk, also talks about the risk that our internal audit and control units are doing their work and acting adequately, that they have the right practices, that they have the right methodology, that internal audit function within an organization, or internal control, that these two functions within an organization are effective. Okay, legal is very important. I will follow you through. Do we understand the legal risk in the countries that we operate in? Tax, employment, the legalities around the businesses that we do. And of course, you've got global risk, risk around things that are happening globally and how it affects our business. All right. So some risks are inherent and some of them are residual. And it's good that every risk management professional understands the difference between the risk that is inherent in the line of business that you do and the residual even after you put in controls. Okay? There's always some form of risk that is left even after controls have been put in. All right. So one of the great things about MR is that it follows through with this process, which is a step 1 to step 6 approach. Identify the risk, the context, identify the risk, estimate, evaluate, plan and implement your treatment, then communicate these to everybody. This is a brilliant process to it. Okay? I'll move on quickly. Okay? So this is the structure of MR. It's got 6 parts to it, and it's got some decent templates in the appendices. So the content has got this, this part, and the appendices are also excellent. It even allows you to be able to look at the criteria for the maturity model for risk. It also provides you some kind of health check. So it's a great, great document. Part 1, right? What is risk? What is risk management? It gives you all this. Part 2 tells you about the principles that I mentioned earlier. Part 3 talks about the third part, talks about their approach, the policy, the process guide, the strategy, the registers, and the various types of plans, improvement plans for communication, response plan, all sorts of documents, and it gives you clear guidance in terms of what should constitute each of these documents. Number 4 talks about the process, which I just showed to you a couple of minutes. Number 5 talks about, or part 5 talks about how do you embed this within an organization for review. And finally, you know, some perspectives around strategic risk, program, project, operational, and how this can achieve measurable value. As I said, it's got excellent templates within it. You can literally take this template and you can adopt them for your own organization. And this is really great. It gives you some techniques from a communication perspective that I expect risk professionals to be experts at. Some of them are scientific, some of them are not. So you get things like Monte Carlo simulation. How do you do that? How do you use that? How do you use some probabilistic models? How do you use the model for proximity of risk? So it's quite deep, okay? It provides you with a health check, and it tells you, so it gives you the criteria for a maturity model for risk management using initial, repeatable, define, manage, and optimize. Great, great document. And then it mentions some specialization. The specialization are not exhaustive, and they're not as broad as the things that I've explained to you, which I myself as minutes ago, but this is what comes with the document. So it's a great, great document that you should be familiar with. And you need to combine it with ISO 31000. What ISO 31000 is what the ISO provider, what ISO organization provides. And it's a decent summary, it's a decent set of requirements that the business can use to measure itself. So the issue in your own organization is to ask yourself, am I following through? Can I pass a formal assessment, a formal independent assessment with regards to ISO 31000? Can my organization be assessed with regards to ISO 31000? Okay, so in the ISO 31000 document, it talks about 17 different benefits and capabilities that you can derive once your risk management capability as an organization is improved. It gives you 17 different benefits. So for people who need to do a business case in their organization, you can use this directly for the business case to say, how do I present risk management in my own organization? It also talks about the various stakeholders who should be concerned about risk management, the professionals, the regulators, people who do evaluation, the auditors. So all this is directly from the ISO 31000 document. And it gives some 21 different definitions of terms. So in the document, all these 27 definitions are in there, and it provides notes on the sum of them. It provides some notes. On number 1, it says risk is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. Then it provides some notes. It says an effect of deviation from the expected positive or negative. Objectives can have different aspects, strategic or project. So it's a decent document. It's just that it will make sense for an organization that's looking to do this as the standard to leverage on the best practice called management of risk to be able to help them get the standard, because you would need some external guidance, and that's what the MOR is for. So it's got clauses, just like every ISO document. It's got clause 3, clause 4, clause 5, and some kind of annex. I'll show you the principles, the framework, the process, and some of the things that in the annex talks about key outcomes, attributes, continual improvement, which is essential, key accountability for risk application, application of risk, continual communication. So it puts all this in the appendix. So with regards to ISO 31000, this is what you need to know once you understand the slide. That's it. That really is what ISO 31000 is about. It talks about its own principles, just like MOR has the same definition or similar definition of the same principles. So if you're doing an audit for risk management in an organization and you work to the reception, one of the things you want to ask immediately is, what exactly are the principles for managing risk in your own organization? That's number one. What are the adopted principles, and what is the interpretation of these principles in your own organization? Another will be the framework that it provides. It provides a clear framework. You must have a mandate for risk from the board, and you have to ensure board commitment. If you don't have this, you're not really doing enterprise risk management. You've got to design a framework for managing risk, implement it, right? Monitor and review it, and ensure that it's continuously or continually improved upon. This is the framework that ISO 31000 provides. And the last part of ISO 31000, apart from the appendix, talks about what? This diagram that says you need to establish the context. Then you have to do the risk assessment before you get to the treatment. So it's the context in which you're looking at risk, the assessment, and the treatment. So the assessment contains three key things: the identification, the analysis, and the evaluation. And if you look at to the left and to the right of that diagram, it says you've got to communicate, and consistently you need to ensure that you monitor and review those. So this is what ISO 31000, this is what it provides. You've got to combine this with what some MR provides. Principles, the framework, and the process. Slightly different from how MR looks at it, but you need to combine both. So I call ISO 31000 the head. I call management of risk, MR methodology from Axelos, I call it the body, the entire body and the legs. While you need to capture the head, the entire body also needs to be in place. Absolutely. Okay? So I'll round up with just one or two things, and we'll bring this to a close. Alright? So some of those things that we spoke about, some of them are strategic in themselves, while some of the other things are tactical. So things like communication, allocation of resources, commitment to mandate, measurement and review, they're strategic. All the other things are around the process and the risk register, all those things are tactical in reality. The operations is what it is that you do every day to ensure that the register you've designed is populated every week or every month, depending on what works for your organization. Okay, so that's it, really. I'll try to make it quick. The highlights of this, I'll quickly go through this in 1 second. The highlights of this is that there's a methodology called MR, which is the body for risk management of risk. This diagram that is here is clear. It talks about the principles, short principles, components, what makes up a risk strategy document, how the register should be designed, how the issue register should be differentiated from the risk register, how you need to have early warning indicators, and how these indicators need to be tied to the different risk classes. And then I have added the part on the right, which says that those are the various classes. So I've gone through different classes of risk: corporate governance, management, strategy, market credit, operational liquidity, reputation, social risk, political investment, financial, health and safety, environment, counterparty, technology, project, economic, commercial, regulatory. Then finally, I've just included internal audit, legal, global, and I've just brought in this concept. This is not so much as a class or category is just a concept around inherent and residual risk, and the risk professionals have to consistently keep their eyes on. MOR also provides this process. It's a six-step process that starts from identify the context, identify the risk, estimate, evaluate, plan and implement, and communicate. And as I said, the document is great, and you need to combine it with ISO 31000 as a standard if you're looking to achieve this as an organization. MOR cannot certify a company, but you can be certified as an organization against 31000. And the 31000 document primarily refers to these diagrams that talks about principles again, framework, and a process. You need skilled hands and skilled from experience and competence to be able to marry both of them. Finally, as I said, ISO 31000 is the head. Management of risk methodology forms the body and the legs on which ISO 31000 will run on. Thank you very much for listening. My name is Orlando. You can send me emails to orlando@tradingheights.net. Questions, guidance, and I believe PECB is going to make this available on YouTube, and I'll be quite happy to hear from anybody.
Thank you, Orlando. Thank you for this highly informative presentation. Since we're running out of time, we will go quickly through the questions. One of the questions is, how can an organization protect itself from counterparty risk, especially considering the fact that causes of failure by the counterparty might not be visible at the time the contract is entered to?
Okay, well, I guess that's where risk management comes into, comes in. One of the things that in some counterparty risk, that you have to even have a counterparty for a counterparty. So during the risk management process, you've got to look at the contract and ask yourself, what are the risks that are attached to this? Is it that the person I'm relying on to be able to do this might not be in a position to do this? If that goes wrong, how do I protect myself and protect my own organization? So, indeed, yes, you've got to really do the counterparty for the counterparty, and you've got to do risk management well ahead of time. So, yeah, that's one of the things that are important to do and to achieve.
Okay, the next question is...
Okay, sorry, one second. Risk management itself allows you to identify the counterparty risk that can affect your own organization, and you can come up with ways by which you can mitigate them. Okay, sir, go ahead.
The next question was, what is internal audit risk? How can this be managed if the internal audit department is responsible for risk management of the organization?
So I said that clearly, that we need, organizations need to differentiate the enterprise risk management function from the internal audit function. Most regulated institutions, especially financial services, have those two functions completely differentiated. Completely differentiated. So in reality, you're right. In every organization, it's got to look at it and say, how do I differentiate my enterprise risk management department from my internal audit unit? Because the internal audit unit sometimes cannot look at risk holistically enough. So a mature organization needs to have those two separate units or functions differentiated. So you're not right when you say that the internal audit is going to be looking at risk. Yes, they will look at the part of risk, but there's meant to be a separate functional unit focused on enterprise risk management, and that will typically should not be the internal audit.
Okay, thank you. And the last question for today is, which is generic, MOR or ISO 31000?
Well, both of them are actually very generic, Both of them are very generic. None of them tells you all the things that I've added to this presentation, so they don't go into the specifics. So for an organization that is looking at it purely internally, it makes sense for them to follow through with MOR. But it's also good that you achieve ISO 31000, because ISO 31000 can be validated by an external authority. And it's an ISO 31000, it's not UK, it's global. So in reality, my recommendations to businesses and to organizations and to anybody on this webinar is that your organization should look to achieve both of them. You should look to achieve 31000 from an organizational perspective, But from an internal person perspective, you can adopt MOR so that it allows you to build your internal capabilities. So you need both actually, not one without the other.
Okay, thank you. And once again, because of the limited time that we have and another webinar that will begin in about 30 minutes, we will have to wrap it up for today. I want to thank you, Orlando, for this great and highly informative presentation. I hope all the attendees enjoyed as well. I want to thank you for sparing your time out of your busy schedules and joining us in these weekly webinars. As you know, we always update our webinar schedule, so please check our webinar schedule for the next webinars, and there will be lots of interesting topics. Especially, we are hosting on Friday a special webinar about the recent events that happened with the end of Safe Harbor and the new regulations that US companies have to face now with transferring data from EU countries. So stay up to date with our webinar schedule in our website and our social media as well, and you will get lots of information from these webinars. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to send them at marketing@pecb.com, and we will answer to them together with Orlando through email. Thank you once again, and see you next week. Bye bye.